People sometimes ask me, "Hey Marian, what method do you use in your language school?" And I tell them, none, and all of them. For many people, quality of a language school is determined by method it uses. In pursuit of the best method, we sometimes forget that it is not the method, but teachers who are the bearers of true values in education. We reduce this profession of a language teacher to just an implementer of the method. And also, many language schools online on their websites, they promote this idea that there is only one perfect method that can work miracles and that can teach English everybody. Such method, however, never existed. Methods come and go. They're like fashion trends. So what is or isn't considered good or effective at this time is to a very large extent reflection of what is currently in vogue or what is currently in fashion. Things like translation, memorizing, drills, and learning grammar were labeled old-fashioned, and therefore many students used to avoid them. And some methods simply ignore linguistic research altogether and tell their prospective clients what they want to hear. So, for example, they tell them that with our method, you learn 5 times faster, or with our method, you don't have to do any homework, or, for example, something like, with our method, you can learn like a child. There are 3 approaches to teaching languages that form substrate for most other methods that language schools use. So the first method is grammar translation method. Maybe you know it as the traditional method. The second one is audiolingual method, and maybe you heard about Callan method or direct method for English, or even speak your mind. These all are audiolingual methods. And then we have communicative language teaching, which is now very, very popular. And here, for example, we can put task-based language teaching, or PPP, which is presentation, practice, and production method. But don't get fooled by the names of the method. None of them is better than the other, and every single one has its downsides. So the grammar translation method, for example, is often labeled as the traditional method and therefore automatically written as bad. This is the method that you might have experienced at school. Typical for this method is, for example, that teachers use Slovak or your mother tongue in classes. They explain a lot of grammar, there is a lot of translation, there is a lot of reading, there is a lot of writing as well, but what lacks in classes is sufficient amount of communication, sufficient amount of conversation. The method dates back to the 19th century. And as we know, tourism wasn't anywhere near as developed as it is now. So people didn't have this need to communicate face to face, and they worked on reading and writing, which was much more important. So the grammar translation method is very often criticized for the lack of communication. People very often say that teachers who use grammar translation method are not very experienced or not very skilled because they use a lot of mother tongue. And many students, many linguists complain that there is a lot of grammar so that you learn more about English than English itself. And of course, excessive amount of repetition and a lot of memorization is also an aspect that many people don't like about this method. Audiolingual method, on the other hand, was a direct reaction to grammar translation method that was heavily criticized back in the day. This method, as I said before, is the mother of the infamous or famous, depends on your perspective, Callan method or direct method for English. Although many language schools adopted this method and portray it as the method for learning English, It is far from perfect, and this method also came in for a lot of criticism. The criticism is mostly stemmed from the fact that audiolingual methods are heavily based on imitation and drills and memorization as well. So there wasn't much improvement when we compared with the preceding grammar translation method. However, the novelty of this method was that translation and use of students' native language was not allowed. But because it's based on drills and imitation, some English teachers and students as well say it's very mechanical and therefore is not effective for spontaneous conversation in the real world. Because of that, some people also labeled this method as quite monotonous and generally not fun. Its critics as well claimed that the method is more suitable for beginners because of the memorizing, and you need to memorize certain amount of phrases to be able to start somehow, but that it doesn't offer much if your level is a little bit higher. Once the audiolingual method was bruised and beaten on the floor, the communicative language teaching took language education by storm. It spread like wildfire because it was supposed to be a fun method. It was supposed to be void of memorizing, and most of all, with plenty of meaningful conversation. That seemed like a perfect method for this modern world. But it also met with criticism. It was attacked for its lack of focus and systematic approach to learning languages. It was also attacked for the fact that the grammar was not taught explicitly. Some teachers even got the feeling that aimless chatting with their students is the true communicative language teaching. As a consequence, some students claimed that it's like learning everything and nothing at the same time. Communicative classrooms started to simulate naturalistic English environment with maximum authentic conversation and no grammar and rules. But that failed to deliver desirable results, especially for EFL learners. Communicative language teaching reached its turning point, and it was in dire need of reform. As linguistic research advances, we discover more and more about how languages are learned and what works and what doesn't. We discover that memorizing and drilling are as important as meaningful conversation, that explanations of grammar rules actually help you to learn faster. We discovered that your native language and translations are an invaluable tool and can facilitate language learning. We also know that it is naive to think that one can learn a foreign language the way children do. And although some of these myths persist, there is more and more people who realize that using just one single method to learn a foreign language is nothing more but wishful thinking and even marketing nonsense. So what is wrong with using only one single method for teaching English? Well, first we have to realize that teachers are much more important in the whole process of learning. And promoting just one method deprofessionalizes the field and teachers as well. It doesn't encourage innovation, and it doesn't encourage informed heuristic teaching, from theoretical knowledge to observation, reflection, and application. And of course, it deprives teachers of their autonomy. Teachers don't just implement a method. They need to have a good understanding of what works and what doesn't for a particular student in a particular environment. Methods often present themselves as universal ways to teach everybody, sometimes completely ignoring the fact that people as individuals are different, with different needs and different preferences. For example, visual learners who like writing stuff down to remember it will have a terrible time learning with the audiolingual method. Now, in language teaching, we are slowly abandoning the idea of one single method, and we call this era post-method era. In this time, teachers need to be more sensitive to local sociocultural conditions and the needs of their students. Methods are not bad per se, don't get me wrong. Even I use their aspects in my teaching. But teachers need to be well-trained and informed, and they need to know and also use a wide range of methods. They need to cherry-pick the best strategies to maximize the efficiency of their teaching rather than hiding behind one-fits-all solutions. There isn't just one method. It's a blend of principles and strategies that work together. We should stop seeing the world of language education in black and white, because that world is much more vibrant and has so much to offer. The most successful students are the ones who experiment with various strategies and then choose the ones that work best for them. Commercial methods of learning languages are sometimes presented by language schools as panacea to everything, and unfortunately, they are often used just as a marketing ploy. Educated, skilled, and enthusiastic language teachers who love their jobs are guaranteed to come up with strategies that will work for you. Enthusiasm is contagious, and if you get motivated, you'll be unstoppable, and your English will get better by bounds and leaps. Don't be afraid to become the owner of your own language learning. Instead of looking for a one-fits-all solution, put in some time, put in some effort, and try to devise one-fits-me method. If you manage to do that, you will take your English learning to a whole different level. If you like what we're doing, and if you learned something new or maybe get some motivation, please support us and subscribe. We'll be very happy, and I will see you in our next videos. This has been Marian from Language Studio Euphema. Bye-bye.